It's only going to be a 2-minute delay.
Great Scott, it's only 2 minutes of delay.
I hope this 2-minute delay is worth it.
There'll be a 2-minute delay at the gate.
After this 2-minute delay.
There will be a 2-minute delay while you are exterminated. The game's afoot, I found you, 2-minute delay.
Oh, the 2-minute delay. And a 2-minute delay.
A 2-minute delay is on next on the TV.
No, I'm the doctor. I've put the end of the world on a 2-minute delay. A 2-minute delay.
Get nerdy with me. Talk nerdy to me.
Well, it's that time. A semester has come to a close, and it's time to do a review, basically, and kind of say, what have we learned? What have we gotten out of this? What in the wide world of sports is the answer to all of the excitement that we've spent an entire long and arduous semester completing? Well, I have an answer for you. At least for me. You see, my goal is to be an English teacher, to teach in a secondary ed classroom, be it middle school or high school. I haven't quite made my mind up yet. But through this class, and through the readings, and through the lessons, and through all the online discussions, I've discovered one thing, and that is that literature, at its base, at its foundation, is extraordinarily important to students of all ages. Not just secondary ed, but elementary ed, preschool. It's an important aspect of how our students grow their minds, grow their perspectives, grow their understandings of the world. Through reading both nonfiction, fiction, and creative historical fiction, they can come to an understanding of the world before, the world now, and what the world could look like down the road. When you look at books like Lions of Little Rock, right? That's this one here. Look at a historical piece of our country. You look at the story of a young girl, a white girl, who grows to be friends with another girl in her school. But the realization that that other girl is actually black, but she doesn't appear to be. But because she is, all of a sudden the entire world shifts to turn on her. She's dropped from her school. She's forbidden from coming into the area. And the girl, our main character, is suddenly now unclean because of it, and becomes the target, and becomes all this drama. But to understand that this book gives us a look into that world, a world that we have left behind for the most part, a world that our understanding of sometimes is only included in clippings or when our parents or our grandparents speak of it. But here, they can get right into it. They can dig into it. They can read a creative story that looks back on the historical context, and they can find out where we've come from. Another example, just Inside Out and Back Again. A story of Vietnam, of a young girl who is in Saigon before it falls and escapes by inches, by moments, by minutes, if you will. And she ends up traveling across the globe to the United States, ends up in Florida, and ends up in Alabama, and begins to journey through her integration and her understanding of American culture, American language. Her commentary on English language is fantastic, and as an English teacher and a one-time linguistics class student, made me laugh. But this is a historical study, and as the author speaks in the addendum, this actually, most of what happens in here occurred to her or to those around her. This is important. This gives our students the ability to look creatively at a story, at a poem. If a student enjoys reading poetry, this gives them the ability to dig into poetry, into form, into understanding how these poems are written. But all of those things are here in a historical novel, well, poetry, that can teach them and give them an understanding of where we've come from, where we're going, how we're going to get there. How in the world are we going to get there with characters that view her in a negative light? Can we get there being characters that view her in a positive light? And how can we discuss that in a classroom? And how can we discuss that with our families and our friends and beyond? That's the beauty of literature. You have books like Whale Talk. Books that talk about prejudices, that talk about bullying, that talk about violence, that talk about all these things that are real to us and are real to our students of varying degrees. This is a book that is huge. This is important, and we need to be talking about it. We need to be talking about the aspect of bullying, be it verbal, physical, or mental, or emotional. All of those things are important. This book kicks it. Red Aside, a book that talks about education and reading, and exactly what I'm speaking about right now is how our students' minds can be grown, can be enhanced, can be exploded because they will take that knowledge, they will read about it, they'll extrapolate it, and they'll want to read more. And they'll take it beyond their young adult fiction days. They'll go into their adult fiction and they'll read fantastic, rich adult fiction, rich stories and novels that will change their perspectives and engage their curiosity and their imagination. Books like Speak, that talk about a reprehensible crime, a terrible crime, an awful thing, but in a way that you can read it and understand it from a perspective that may not be your own. A perspective that is not mine, but is a perspective that I can begin to understand. And I can understand the implications of that act on someone and the pain and the just brokenness that it brings. All from a book. The discussions that came out of this on our online discussion board, brilliant. Let's just keep going. Looking for Alaska, John Green, who is obviously a god above man, of course, because I like John Green. But John Green, brilliant writer. He tells a story of Alaska and the story that ends in tragedy. But there are so many pieces along the road that we can look at. The story of where she's come from. And how does she handle all that sorrow and that pain and that gigantic tight knot in her heart that hasn't been loosened in quite some time. And all of a sudden, one night, it just breaks loose. And it's awful. But how do we understand that in relation to our students? How can we talk about what Alaska's feeling? What drives Alaska to her moments? What continues to push her to be the way she is? How can we talk about the other characters in the book and as it relates to us? That's the brilliance of young adult fiction. It meets our students where they're at. It's absolutely what we need to be doing. Eleanor and Park, one of my favorites actually out of the collection. It's fantastic. It talks about young love, and I absolutely identified more with Eleanor, oddly enough, than Park, because as a kid in middle school, I was kind of the ugly duckling and the nerd and whatever, and kind of just the kid that everyone made fun of and picked on everything. And there was a girl that I liked a lot, and she was gorgeous and pretty. Never got to ask around, but I did try. I thought about it. I identified with Eleanor because I understand what it's like to be that person. Eleanor's story ends better than mine. She fell in love, and they kept in touch and all those things. Divergent. It's fun. This is it. The fun stuff. Divergent. It's fun reading. Kids are going to look at this and go, oh my gosh, they're going to read it and they're going to have a lot of fun. Sure, there's discussions you can have literature-wise, but it's fun. And it's okay to have fun reading. That's the beauty of reading, is that fun is important. Fun stimulates creativity. Fun stimulates imagination. Fun gets their brain going. Fun gets them warmed up. Fun is what we need. So Divergent is one of those. Maze Runner is another. It's another fun one. Yeah, absolutely. Together, these two are just fun to read. We continue. Also on the historical concept steps is The Book Thief. It's a big one. It's a big one. It's large. It's huge. It's a lot of pages. But this story also is, again, the historical context of The Book Thief. The story of World War II and the Nazis told from a perspective that we don't often hear from and we've never explored. This is brilliant. And you can talk about how she feels as an outsider. You can talk about how she feels as an adopted young woman, or sorry, adopted young girl. You can talk about how her drawings and her stories and all that. You can talk about her friend in the basement who, she ends up losing but then finds again. You can talk about her relationship with her adopted parents and how that fosters over time and how that grows and why does that grow and how do we see that grow. The Book Thief. A story everyone needs to read. All right, we're getting down to the bottom here. This is another fun one. But it's fun because it's current and useful because you can talk about the mythology of all the gods and demigods, as I talked about in my video. You can actually make comparisons. You can talk about, well, why is this set in Los Angeles? Why is this set in New York? Why is this set in Denver? Why is this set in Las Vegas? Why are these elements placed within these geographical locations of our country? What does it signify? How does it signify that? How do you relate to these characters? How do you relate to this? How do you understand the implications of what's coming next? Can you, with your knowledge of what we've learned about mythology, can you predict what the next book will be about? Can you expect what will happen to the characters? Fun stuff. But they've also made a movie about it. Don't see it. It's bad. Bad llama. Bad llama. Don't do it. But again, fun, but also historical and exciting and different. It's cool. Speaking of cool, comic books, graphic novels. If you got a student who doesn't like to read long novels or who likes to get into this stuff first and this kind of gets their appetite going, here it is. This is the stuff to bring into your classroom. And I think this is absolutely going to be something I have a stack. I have a stack of comic books, like 25 comic books, that I will bring into my classroom eventually and saying, okay, if this isn't going to get you excited straight out the gate, try this for a minute, then we'll move into the big stuff. This absolutely is important because you want to reach readers of all stages, of all situations, of all perspectives. You want to reach them where they're at, and this will reach a good number of them, both guys and girls as well. Why not have this in your classroom? It tells a great story. It has a lot of good elements. You can talk about family. You can talk about relating. You can talk about being an alien in some place. You can talk about not fitting in. You can talk about wanting to be a bigger superhero than you are. You can talk about all those things right here. Brilliant. I didn't intentionally leave Lois Lowry until the end. It just kind of accidentally happened. You watched me. I just kind of grabbed. This is the big one. This is my favorite of all time. Number one. Any questions asked of me, I will say, and I'll come back to Lois, The Giver. It is an absolutely beautiful story, and it talks a lot about where we could go, where could we end up as humanity? What would we end up doing to ourselves? What would we end up viewing as important versus what would we want to get rid of and erase and no longer acknowledge, such as our emotions and our feelings? And you can talk about, like, have you ever not wanted to have feelings? Have you ever not wanted to experience that? Has it ever become too much for you? And I'm guaranteeing you, unless they're lying, everyone's going to be like, you know what? Just a few minutes ago, actually. This book opens up the conversation. And it tells it in an unflinching way that makes us realize that sometimes as much as we want to be out of the emotion, okay, want to be away from the emotions, we want to be out of this stuff, you can't get away from it. And it continues to follow us, enrich us, make us beautiful, make us more than we are. That's the one I would say start with. All of the books we've read this semester that I've just shown to you are fantastic, are absolutely brilliant. They relate to me in some way. I'm sure they relate to you in some way as well. I'm sure there are students out there who have read these books and they found so many different pieces that they relate to them, and that's what's important. Literature helps them know they're not alone, and they're not. Because I'm 34 years old. I was a teenager once. I was in middle school and high school. I understand that. I have to think about it for a minute, but I remember. And these books help me remember that and step back into their shoes for a split second so that I can understand that sometimes their life may be over in their heads. And it may feel like that. And that may be the truth they see. But the reality of it is what we can do through our literature and through our stories and through our teaching is we can tell them, you're not alone, it's not over, and it's absolutely going to get better. My name is Mr. DeLay. It has been a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to be in a class called Young Adult Fiction ENG 3470 at Metropolitan State University of Denver, here in Denver, Colorado. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed the book reviews. If you want to, I'll put a link to the profile, to my portfolio, which will have a lot of things, more things, writing assignments and things we've done. There's a cool survey paper there. It has absolutely been an enlightening experience. And if you have the opportunity at any point in your life to take a young adult fiction class or to explore it further through an online group or something, anything, any piece that can get you into this world and help you understand it better, take it. Don't ignore it. This world that we sometimes think of as kiddie world or like teen world, it's a world that's separated from me by a couple of years, well, by a lot of years, let's be honest. But it's not any less brilliant than the world I live in and the books I read. Well, that's all there is to it, really. That's the end of it. My time to close up and head out and be done and salute and all that. But I will tell you this. There's a lot of things out there in this world. A lot of novels, a lot of literature, a lot of books. And a good place to start, if you haven't been reading a lot or you haven't been reading much, those books I just talked about. They're absolutely brilliant. They're good stuff. And they're fun. And they're educational. And there's cool stuff in there that you will relate to. I guarantee it. My name is Mr. DeLay. It has been my honor and my privilege to delay you for more than 2 minutes today. Until next time, don't forget, there's a lot of books out there. You got to start reading them. We'll see you in the stacks, in the libraries, and in the bookstores. Good night.
All I really need for you to do is just please talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me. Get nerdy with me. You name all 12 of the dogs, I can't resist that. And what's the core in your wand? I think that ours match. Cause I know with me you get sore. Durham strength to Hogwarts. I'm pretty sure on me you cast a curse, girl.